Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert Rich Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, The Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome back to Rock the Stage Show, Sunday night. It's The Trigger, Rich Bontrager, 7 p.m. every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here bringing amazing guests from around the world, and we go to a whole new category tonight. I'm really jacked up about this because honestly, when I was a kid, and probably most of you have done this, you wanted to break the world's record of something in the Guinness Book, right? I mean, we did dominoes. Me and my brother loved dominoes. We tried to make the biggest domino run in the world, but no way we're gonna make that record. But it was lots of fun trying to break a record and achieve something. Now, records are great. The Guinness Book is awesome, fantastic. But there's also records in life. There's also barriers in life. Tonight, we're going to get into both the records and a unique record indeed, but we're also getting into the barriers. And how do you break the barriers? How do you keep moving up the ladders? How do you move through the corporate world? Entrepreneurship. If you're an entrepreneur, you know there's all sorts of barriers. So we're going to get into that here tonight on Rock the Stage Show. Meet the champion of the boards, a three-time world record martial arts who's cultivated a global phenomenon around the art of board breaking. Yes, you heard me, board breaking. Leif Becker delivers a unique perspective on the intersection of athletic excellence and entrepreneur success through each of his keynote experiences. And yes, he breaks a few boards along the way. Welcome, Leif Becker, to Rock the Stage Show. Welcome, Leif.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to have you here tonight. And I have done a little research on you. So I know you have a standing bit about the three most common questions asked. And you talk about you haven't broke a bone, you haven't done this, but people always want to know those things. Does
That's
that
right.
get boring after a while answering those three most common questions?
I'm always ready for them. I'm always ready for them. Whether I get them when I'm on the stage or I get them when I'm just out in public and somebody finds out what I do. Um, yeah, they're always coming at me. Number one, of course, is does it hurt? Yeah, it does. If you've seen those videos of me smashing boards, you know there's a little pain involved, but it's part of the journey.
I can remember as a kid watching people on ESPN, ABC, around the world, the globe. Somebody's breaking boards, and I'm thinking, of all the things I want to be a record man for, that's not one of them. So, what got you into this, man?
Oh, yeah, my journey started. It's funny, we all have a journey. We all have a journey, and board breaking has become my canvas of life. We all have that, but yeah, mine began, and when we're on our journey, we usually know where it begins. Mine was on a Saturday afternoon. I just got done teaching martial arts classes at my school, and went home, and just like you said, Rich, turned on ESPN, and what the heck? There was this guy breaking boards as fast as he could, and I don't know what came over me. And if you're on your journey, you probably don't know what came over you, but you're there and you're on that path right now. But long story short, I said, I bet I could do that. Now, I don't know if I said it with that much conviction, but I sure did say it. I bet I could do that. And I didn't realize the ride I was in for, but it's been a fun one.
No, okay. Again, you're a kid. You're watching ESPN. Mom, Dad, I found my calling. I'm going to break boards for a living. What was their reaction?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I think it. Not even. Yeah, my parents and beyond that. Hey, I'm going to go out and break as many boards as I can, and there's not a tremendous amount of logic behind that. So there's got to be a deeper sense and a deeper meaning, and I think we're going to touch on a lot to that today. What's our deeper calling, and why are we doing what we're doing? Because sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
No, no. Now, I do love your nickname, the chairman of the boards. And sometimes in the corporate world, honestly, it does feel like you're smacking your head against the wall. You're trying to get people to move. And it does feel like someone's got to break here. Something's got to change. Tell us about how you made the flip the boards to the boardroom. What was that like for you?
It's I've had the opportunity to work with so many executive teams, and what I've the real correlation, the real alignment behind my journey and what again the corporate room's all about. It's really long term goal setting, and you said it a moment ago. We can talk about setting goals and there may be a challenge or two along the way, but when you're talking about world records, you're really working at a higher level. My attempts within the realm of board breaking took years. It wasn't weeks, it wasn't months, it wasn't, hey, let's review our quarterly report. This was 7 years of my life from conception to execution. And that's really when you're working at that level within a company, you're not talking, you may be talking quarterly, but
Yep.
more than that, you're talking a visionary years down the road and where do we see ourselves?
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the alignment comes in with the types of challenges I faced with, where companies are looking to go and what they're looking to do. Again, from conception to execution, we help get them there.
So let's talk about that because again, visionaries, they see 5 years, 10 years. The board is thinking quarterly. There's always a conflict there.
Yeah.
So how do you help teams align for the visionary saying, follow him, trust him, because he's going to break a couple rules probably.
That's exactly right. And we said it a moment ago, sometimes it's not necessarily there and it doesn't completely make sense. Logistically it may be there, but there needs to be that vision behind it, and when you have vision, you need wiggle room. I like to put it that way. There's going to be a little bit of adjustment along the way. We're going to be running into a lot of things that we probably don't even realize are out in front of us right now, but it's accepting that challenge. It's accepting a challenge. And again, I hold multiple world records, and the average has been 7 years. 7 years of my life, and I can promise you, I've watched it crash and burn on big levels. And it was how do we then rebuild, restructure, and realign? And we talk about that a lot. It's the realignment process. All right, we got off track a little bit. How do we bring it back? Because this is where we want to get to.
Well, you're one of the most recognized guys doing this. I mean, of anybody. The the Today Show, Late Night with David Letterman, ESPN, the History Channel has had you featured before. The history of breaking boards. Here's Leaf. But you have played on big stages. So tell us about some of the setback. Tell us more about that journey because there had to be a learning curve from your garage, your backyard to, oh my gosh, ESPN wants me now.
Yeah, and that's what I came to realize was, and again, from where my journey began when I first got it started, I would have never dreamed that it would have been brought to the level that we're at now. Performing in Times Square, where I was breaking boards for 24 hours straight. Um, it's funny, the spectacle of board breaking will always be there. But I'll tell you right now, what was one of the challenges? Getting a trailer truck into Times Square after 9/11. Um, who would have thought? Again, 24 hours of boards is about a trailer truckload. That pretty much is. But we had to find the right. We'll talk. I talk a lot about team building.
Yeah.
What's your team about? We talk about your internal team, your external team. What's the dynamic of it all? Who's being brought in? How are they playing? I mean, I spend a lot of time on how to build the right team because that's what had happened to me. Again, the first time I went to go break boards, it was more or less me and probably 4 or 5 people that were to help me. When
Yeah.
I was in Times Square, we had 150 volunteers that day just moving material around. We had to cultivate, and it was a national team. It grew into a national team. My event producer was in LA. My sales team was in North Carolina. How did, again, the whole component of board breaking is just one little piece to a huge international phenomenon that I call that I would have never expected.
Well, there's coordinating the people, the event, the rhythm of the boards coming so you can keep whacking, whacking, whacking. And they've got to have all that time. Like you said, that's a big truck. So it's not just you in the backyard going, let me grab another one, kids.
That's right.
You have a whole assembly line. And who coordinated that? Did you coordinate that? There was a event coordinator that took that job over for you. How do you incorporate all these people?
Great question. It was bringing and here we go. Let's go to the corporate level again. It was bringing in the right people that understood the vision I had.
Yeah.
They allowed me to share my story and share to where I wanted to get to, and then I allowed them to run with it and just say, "Now let's just remain aligned." I'm going to give you the places we want to go, and you're going to tell me how we're going to get there. And again, that goes back to big thinking, and it's how to synergistically bring these individuals together. A big learning lesson too. I also brought in a couple people that were not right for the team, and that's when it imploded. I totally watched the project shift in a direction it shouldn't have gone, and it literally collapsed. I had 3 years into my event in Times Square, I watched it collapse and everything just, I mean, it disintegrated. And I had to pick up all the pieces. I felt like I was given my shoebox and sent home. And it was because the wrong people were a part of my team.
Let's go deeper on that because I've worked with executives, I run my own teams, and I preach right people, right place, right job. And people get frustrated when you say, I'm sorry you don't fit. You got to go. Yeah, they think they fit and they struggle with it. It's your call. You're the boss. You're the leader for your event. Did you have that pushback of, what do you mean, Leaf? I'm not the guy? Really, Leaf?
I had that conversation up front because there's two things. When I'm building the right team, there's two things I'm looking for. One is I'm looking for individuals that are knowledgeable in the things that their task items. The second half becomes they understand how to stay in their lane. Okay. We're a team. We all love each other. We're all here because of the skill sets we hold, but don't start playing in don't start jumping in my lane.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane. And that's the conversation I have with anybody who's about to step in and work with me. I want to ensure that they have the assets needed to do the job that needs to get done. But I also want them to say, hey, I want to, and that starts the communication. See, we go from teamwork to communication. You know how easy these things are to hop from one to the other. I start to have communication with these potential team members, and I want to hear what they have to say. If they start trying to take over this piece or that piece or this piece, instead of saying, hey, you know what, so and so, Jimmy over here, I know this is probably what he's working on. Here's a couple small recommendations you may want to pass. I know then that that person's able to work with others. It's a key component when you're
Yeah.
working again high level because how quickly can things shift off target if we're not communicating the right way.
Well, and I'm just also thinking about the fact of there really only can be one boss. And you said 24 hours. I'm going to break boards for 24 hours. Did anyone say, hey, Leaf, maybe we want to start with 12? Did anyone try to really come in and say, look, I know you want to go big, but that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, no, we believe me, there's a lot of pushback. If you have a dream in life, you're gonna have pushback. That's all I can say about it.
Mm.
And it goes back to barriers for a moment. Again, the 24-hour event was streamed live for the 24 hours by ABC. We haven't even gone into barriers yet, but you can direct me back to that. I mean, one barrier was Leif, what happens if we're an hour into this and your hand breaks?
Yes.
We're now have 150 volunteers there. ABC streaming live. We're in Times Square and your hand is broken. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
That was a big conversation, and I didn't have the answer right away. See, here's another thing about dreaming big, thinking big, and being open to large things is acceptance that the answers aren't within you immediately. And I said that to my team on the call. I didn't rush to give them the answer. I said, listen, guys, number one is I know this needs to be addressed, and I don't have the answer yet because you're constantly geared towards success. And now we're talking about what potentially happens if we're on this precipice of failure. And it took me about 2 weeks, and I'll never forget it because 2 weeks later, I sat down and it popped into my mind. I said, okay, I typed an email to the rest of my team. I said, if this happens or that happens, I can't continue on. Here's the follow this structure. And by the way, at the bottom of the input, we will never talk about this again. We're moving forward. We're only going to hit success. I've given you the answer you've asked for. Don't ever bring it up because we're not going to fail.
I love that you add that in there because of the yeah, but that goes on forever. And you have to establish there's a line of go, no go. And we're not going back to this conversation. It's painful that someone keeps bringing it up and bringing it up. And you're like, can we stop now? We're 3 months into this thing. And you brought up what we talked about in week one.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for leaders that leaders want to be on target, on point, but some leaders feel like they're being a jerk if they're telling you stop? What would you say to the leader that's struggling with that?
When you're building the right team, it's not just about the action items, it's also about the alignment of mindset. As a leader, and as someone who's working with others, and you want your team to know that as well. Listen, there may be agreements or disagreements on the task items or action items, but hey, we're also going to have disagreements on the thought process of how this is going to get done. And listen, it's coming back to me. So, get on board with not only with what I say we need to do, but how we need to think.
So, how did you pull that off? Again, ABC, 24 hours. You have this idea. there's sponsors, there's airtime, there's broadcast team. As a broadcaster, I've done a rocking chair event for 24 hours, but I haven't sat there and talked about rocking chair for 24 hours. How did you orchestrate the story, the activity, your team, and get them to buy into that?
Those were the yeah, great question, Rich. Those were the components that got filled in by my team. The message became there, the story became there. One of the big pieces of this puzzle was, and it just falls into the bigger picture of my own personal journey with boards, was we wanted it there to be more than just the physicality of me busting a piece of wood.
Yes.
Um, and so part of that direction was finding the right partner, the right charity. And kids love boards. You said it when we opened this show, man. You're a kid and you want to break. Kids love the realm of board breaking. I mean, they just gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
So from there, I had the opportunity to partner with a lot of great foundations. The one in Times Square was Encourage Kids Foundation. And then they put the pieces together of, hey, let's take what you do over here with breaking boards to what's happening in the lives of children over here and what they're setting forth. And that's where Breaking Barriers, Building Futures came to fruition. Those 12,120 boards that were broken in Times Square, every single one of them had a challenge that a child was facing somewhere in this country. So we broke 12,120 boards for kids across the country in a day. The message grows.
So it just dawned on me because I've done props. I love being on stage doing props, putting them out. Did you give away some of those broken boards and say, remember this, remember this? Did you do anything to physically say you were here, you saw it, and here's a board?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the board. I still have hundreds of boards left right here in my house. I'm surrounded by boards because they're no longer become boards. They're pieces of art. Our next
Yes.
mission. I mean, we'll talk a bit, but we have so many. We have this is elevating to another whole level that I would have never thought. And we're looking to bring the world of art into this. We're looking to do art galleries with some artists. We had Andy Warhol's nephew do a board for us that was in Times Square. We had famous artists come in and do boards as well. Those didn't get broken because they weren't children's barriers and they were done by some
Yeah.
well-known artists. But they went up for auction and they raised money for the foundation. So our goal is to, we're moving forward to get more into the art world, and these kids' stories are incredible.
So now you're tying in boards to people and
Yeah.
other stories. You're bridging the gap between Leaf, the amazing guy with world records, and now you're taking Leaf board into other amazing people. And like you said a minute ago, did you ever imagine this was going to take off and this would literally be your career and blow up the way it has like this?
No, no, this is just you have to step back. And Rich, that's what I was saying a minute ago. This is the difference that when I get on stage, this is what I try to share because it's just I could have never foreseen that this was about to happen. And do you have the courage to just jump in and see where things go? And that's what I try to teach. By the time I leave the stage,
Yeah.
I'm saying achievement, a performance, that's not the end of the road. That's just another piece of the puzzle. We have to move beyond that. We have to move into a realm of, and I call it mastery. I mean, again, and I then parlay into the world of sports. When you talk about the greatest figures of sports, you're talking about people that have mastered their craft.
Yes.
And mastery is a different mindset than performance. Mastery is a different mindset than achievement. And I leave the stage and I put it this way: performance is the opportunity to achieve, mastery is the ability to surrender. Where are you going to live? I have taken my events and become and had to surrender. That's where I found my success. Times Square, I become a smaller and smaller and smaller piece of the puzzle every time I go out there.
Excellent.
Are people ready to do that?
So you touched on the word, the
I,
mind. There's an aspect, and I've heard other record, and I've made a heavy part of my career in sports. But the mind, the body, and spirit have got to be in sync. You've got to know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. But the whole essence of this is a deeply emotional event. but mind, body, spirit have got to be centered. Talk to that about personally. How do you get centered for you, board breaking for you personally?
Another lesson I learned along the way was it's not all it's not the physicality of it. The second time I ever went out to break boards, it was the worst attempt of my life. Again, the 1 minute world record, which is 487 boards in a minute. The second time I had done that was at Mohegan Sun, a big casino in Connecticut, and for one reason or another, I just thought, man, if I just get bigger and stronger, I can probably break more boards. But what I never anticipated happening was the moment and instead of hundreds of people, now there's thousands and the venue's bigger. And this was part of what, learning experience was when I walked up to that pile of boards for that moment, I was like, I didn't even know why I wanted to be there. I had just lost it. I
Really?
had lost it. And I was like, well, I guess I got to do it. I guess I got to go. Everybody's here. It's time to go. And I just start hitting boards and it was a mess. I mean, 10 seconds into it, my hand was swollen from my fingers to my elbow. I got carted away in the ambulance, went off to the hospital. Um, and that was the day I left there saying, this is not a physicality. What we're looking to achieve is not just a physical component, especially if you want to play if you want to play in the top stages. You have to be all in psychologically, emotionally. How to prepare yourself for those things are key.
So there are setbacks. You have had setbacks, like you said at the beginning. You just touched on it right now. So what gets you reset to come back out and do it again? Because the physical side hurts, but there's also the embarrassment. The expectation for you has got to go up and up from the crowd, sponsors. And
Yeah.
now you just said you froze coming out. You were not really gonna. How do you keep in the game now?
Yeah. Um, moving forward, when you're on these big journeys, and at this point we have to call it a journey. It's easy to call things goal setting. I set the goal for world. It's no longer a goal. It's a journey. It's a journey because it doesn't matter how many times I get up there. I'm gonna have to work at it. But when it comes to something like that, when it comes to something as devastating that you just feel like the rug's been pulled out from underneath you,
Yeah.
what you've lost is you lost your balance. You've lost your balance. So I put it this way, and again, I teach this from the stage. There's four key components, and whether it's business or whether it's sports, it doesn't matter because the business arena and the professional arena,
Yeah.
they run in the same segments.
Yes, they do.
The first thing you need to have if you is to you want to cultivate energy. You want to cultivate with the direct. You need to cultivate the energy to move forward. The only way you can cultivate energy is to have balance. Have balance in what it is you do. Balance generates energy. The second step is alignment. Alignment sustains energy. The third part is understanding your direction. And the last part is what's your execution point? What's your vision? Balance, align, direct, and execute. These are the four pieces I say. And I say this so I'm out there and I'm talking to a group of salespeople. I say, how many of you get up in the morning and before your feet hit the floor, you're already on your phone? Is that really the balance you're looking for when you're looking to achieve great things? And again, I'm not saying that because I'm just as apropos to doing that as well. But I know it. Balance, align, direct, and execute. We teach teams how to run with this. If you're not getting to where you want to go, it's one of those four things. Either something's out of balance, or it's misaligned, or we're just totally in the wrong direction, or we don't understand our vision. Any one of those is where we're gonna work to massage that a little bit and get us back on track.
What's it like when you walk into the corporate boardroom and say, guys, I'm gonna crack a couple boards, but we're gonna talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. Do they look
I
at you
think
like
that's
you're
my
you're,
biggest
you're going
barrier.
nuts?
That's my biggest barrier professionally.
I was wondering.
Because I'm a this I mean, I can only imagine what the corporate guys are saying before I actually even hey, there's some karate guy coming in, probably holds a few world records, and they probably think I'm going to talk about, the physicality of breaking boards and hoo la la. Listen, we're getting deep. We're getting deep into what success looks like for you.
Yes.
Because again, 7 years to produce an event in Times Square, you better have had some business smarts to make it happen. I had met with Madison Square Garden. We'd almost done it in the rink at Rockefeller Center. Here we are in December now. I mean, we were gonna rent out the fishbowl. I mean, you can't sit down and have conversations like that if you don't understand what you're talking about. You can't share your vision. You don't understand how to communicate, and you can't put the right team together. So please, when I step into a boardroom, we're not talking boards. We're talking futures.
So with all that said, I'm gonna have a shameless. I want to see you break a board. After everything you just said, I
Well,
want to
let's.
see the record holder break a board.
I will do that. I'm going to share with you real quick, Rich. So this is a pile here.
Yeah,
So this is. I want to share with this just what this represents real quick. So again, with the
please.
two, three world records, but two I hold 1 minute. So this is every second for the 60 seconds. This is what I had to go through. Um, 487 boards, 60 seconds. That's 8 boards a second. And little did I realize, though, in 24 hours, this was how many boards I was going through each minute in the 24 hours. So wake up in the morning, every minute you're going through this, and it goes until the next morning at 8 a.m. But so, yeah, I don't know. 8 boards, I don't know. That's where I'm at.
I know I'm
But
not doing it.
but these are everybody asks what they are. These are just regular 1 by 12 pine boards. There's a little bit of power into it, but there's also a little bit of speed. And you know, I'll do it here. I mean, I have broken probably about 15,000 boards in my life. So this is what it's all about. They are hard. I didn't want to go through the wall, so I was trying.
Well, you've also become an author as well. I mean,
Yes,
here we are, breaking barrier. And what was that project?
bringing it down the paper. That's right. The first and everything we've talked about today, Rich, is in the first chapter of the book. It's our own journey, but it was time to reflect. Here's a great thing. A moment ago, we talked about balance. We
Yes.
talked about balance. I want to touch on that just a little bit further because so many people in the world, in the corporate world, come back to me. Again, it's about achievement. And the more often than not than anything I hear is, I don't feel like I'm balanced. I don't feel like I'm living a balanced life. So again, my job is to go back and reflect and say, what can we do to correct that? And this is a perfect time of the year because we're getting into the holidays. Next week is
Oh, yeah.
Christmas. Anybody who feels that they're an ambitious person needs to take the time to reflect more. The balancing component to ambition is reflection. I tell that to anybody I work with. If you're off balance and you're striving and you're working to achieve and this and that, you're moving forward, you need to start stepping back and reflecting a bit. What's the things that have gone on in your life? Again, we talk about the power of gratitude all the time, but what are the things that you can step back and reflect upon? Spend some time doing that, and you will cultivate a level of a balance so you can move forward more efficiently.
Well, work
So,
life balance is one of the biggest conversations that whenever I sit with leaders, and you'll
mhm.
hear them, and we're rocking and we're crushing it, but I keep missing my kids' baseball game. My wife is asking me to take a retreat weekend with her, not a retreat weekend with my company. And the work life balance gets out of whack so fast. And then you don't have a marriage, you don't have
Mhm.
a family, and usually your company will crash and burn too.
Yeah.
That message is so underrated, but needs to be told the way you're describing it.
So, and that's what I'm saying. Between now and the end of the year should be your reflectional points. Listen, we all get jumped in. We're excited. Come January. I mean, how many times are speakers like us booked in January to kick off a year for a company? Let's get on. But if I could reach out to a company right now that I'm speaking for in January, what I would tell them and their team is take the next 10 days, 2 weeks, and don't think about 2025. Reflect. Reflect on who you are. Reflect on your family. Reflect on your kids. Reflect on the life that you've lived so far. What that's going to do is that's going to culminate strength within you. So you're supercharged to take on those ambitions in January.
Yeah.
Reflection is key.
So you mentioned the charity movie. Just give a little more more information on your charity. This sounds fascinating that you're making all these connections. And again, I'm sure way back in the beginning you did not have a plan, but here you are making major connections and serving people in a whole different way. Tell us more about it, please.
Yeah, that's grown as well. Breaking Barriers, Building Futures. We're part of the Champions Charity Alliance. That's where my program lives. And so what it is again, it's the opportunity to meet with people. I say kids, but we're expanding. Tonight, I'm actually speaking to a recovery program for drugs and alcohol recovery.
One of
So
my
here,
favorite things in the world. Bless you, man.
yes, and so tonight I'll be speaking to a bunch of individuals, and we're talking barriers. We're talking about that, but it all goes back to art therapy. They have the opportunity then to just to take a board. we invite them to. We bring them through a whole exercise. Think about the challenges you faced in the past. Think about where you are now. Think about where you want to go. Put everything you have into this board, however you like. Use words, use pictures, just use colors. Make it abstract. It doesn't matter. Just let it out. Let it become that. And then we're going to break through that. Any resistance you feel of what you put down there, we're breaking through. It was funny you said a moment ago because I run into people online and they talk of, their kids are facing each other. We'll send them a board. Here's a board for you. When it's all ready, you get together with me and we'll jump on Zoom and we'll break that board together. So we run it in so many different ways, and it all started because, as with many speakers, I'd be speaking somewhere in the country, and as soon as I realized where I was going to be, the next day I would just make sure I was booked for the Children's Hospital. I've had the opportunity to visit Mount Sinai in New York City. I visit San Francisco's Children's Hospital. Um, and that's what drives me. So as soon as I go out to speak somewhere, a shipment of boards goes to that hospital, and the kids have the opportunity to decorate them, and I'll come in and break them, and we'll just talk. It's just again they just gravitate towards the excitement, and it gives a great opportunity for us to share some time together.
You mentioned something in passing that I want to go back and maybe mine a little bit, but seeing through the boards is part of that actualization, visualization is, yeah, the board's are there, but I have to see through the boards. I have to see my hand going through it before I do it. Just like a downhill skier, they run the race and they know exactly everything. Is that part of seeing through it very important?
Tremendously important, and it goes back to the corporate life we talked about. You
Yes.
have to have the end in mind, but not only does the end in mind need to be there, that needs to be your focal point. It's like picking up your phone and taking a picture. Sometimes you can press where you want it to focus.
Yes.
You want it to focus on the end point. Because and again, and we could again, we'll jump into many different ponds here if we went to the recovery of alcohol and
Oh,
drug addiction.
absolutely. That's what made
We're
me
too
think of it.
focused on this, but let's say, where do you want to be a year from now? And that then we need to focus on that point. We can't, because then we walk out and we start to focus on all the daily challenges we're facing. And we focus on all those barriers we're facing. I always say this when we get more boards here. We'll write all of our goals down on one side,
Yeah.
and then I'll say, when a barrier jumps into your mind, flip the board over and put it here. When you break the board, when my teams come up to break the board, I said the barriers have to come up. These are the ones that are in our face every day. And we'll put our goals down below, but we're going to be hitting these head on. So when you put your board down to break it, those barriers better be in front of you, because I can promise you right now, those are the things in your mind every day.
Well, when I'm in leadership talks, often I will talk about seeing the other side, the visionary end. Most of the teams are talking about the crap in between.
Yeah.
They're always talking about the stuff in between. As you're really telling everybody here today, you got to focus on the other side. You're on one side of the board. You want to get to the other side of the board. You don't care about what's in between, do you? It's
No,
butter
right.
to you. It's butter, and you have to know how to cut the butter, not cut a board.
Yeah. 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 You have to be willing to break through. And that means getting through all the things that are challenging you. And in doing so, often, as we said a moment ago, in doing so in a way that there's still a tremendous uncertainty within us, because we don't really have all the answers that we need, Jake, to get to that other side. It's like saying, okay, you're going to do it, but you're going to have to do it with one hand behind your back. That just it elevates that challenge a little bit more. And I was the same way when I was going out to do world record breaks. And this was for the 1 minute. It was $5,000 to $10,000 an attempt. I didn't have that, but it didn't stop me. It
Yeah,
didn't stop me. I mean, I'll share this quick, great story with you.
yeah.
I often say this too: tell enough people and tell the right people, you'll get to wherever you want to go. Just keep talking, just keep sharing your message. And that's what I did with the world record. I told all my karate students, I was telling their parents. One parent came to me and said, "Hey, how much money do you need?" I was getting ready for that Mohegan Sun event. And I said, "Oh, we just built some sponsor packages for 2 or 3 thousand." He goes, "But how much do you need?" I said, "It's going to cost me like 10 grand to do this world record." And a couple weeks later, he came back, handed me an envelope. I opened it for $10,000. Didn't break the record though for another 3 years. And by the time I had broken that 1 minute world record, his company had invested $250,000 into my venture. It
Wow.
was great to know the chief marketing officer of Schick, the razor company. And as you can see, I still to this day make sure I'm cleanly shaven before I hit the stage. But I mean, I parlay into that story because we're going to face a lot of barriers. And we're also going to face a lot of uncertainties because we don't have all the answers we need yet. I did not have the $250,000. I didn't even know I was going to need a $250,000. I just knew every time it was hitting 10,000, but he saw what I was doing. We did get him, we got him on David Letterman. We got him. I mean, it was win-win. You have to
Yes.
cultivate those win-win opportunities. But it doesn't mean that you know where they're going to lie when you start your journey. It's like, hey, all forces ahead. We don't have all the answers yet. There's a lot of challenges ahead of us. What's our trajectory? And I'll wrap with saying with that story was Times Square was 1.2 million,
Phew.
conception to execution.
Yeah.
For whatever, the time, material, soft and hard costs, $1.2 million, but we had over 200 million impressions worldwide. ABC, we probably had 20 million in rev buy for ads. So if I hadn't learned that message in the 1 minute world record,
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have had the ambition to say I want Times Square at 1.2 million.
Well, and I'm also coming in from he believed in you. He took a chance on
Yeah.
you. He saw something in you. And when you find those people that see something in you, they will invest. And like you said, you didn't break the record, but they came back again and said, we still believe in you.
Yeah.
And we want you to go back out there. That's powerful to have someone in your corner believe in you and keep saying, well, pony up, be pony, because they know something's going to happen. And every time
Mhm.
you're going up, every time you go back out there, you didn't break the record, but now you're more known. Oh, and you have Schick with you. Oh, and you go do another one. You get known and packaged together like that, the chances of succeeding are far greater than doing it alone.
Exactly. It's cultivating that right team, and I said it before. It's an internal team and an external team.
Hmm.
Finding sponsors and cultivating those relationships are all part of your external team that usually you don't start with when you have this vision. We have to go out and find them. And like you said, it goes back to what you just said, passion. If you could have anything, have passion.
So you've had the awards, you've had the acclaim, you've 24 hours, you've been on Letterman. What drives you to keep going now?
I don't know if this is one word or two. World tour. World tour. We have a handful of pieces already in place. We have the venue that's already committed to us. They have 16 locations around the world, from Paris to Spain to London and there's six venues between Canada and and they're on board. They said we want your event in every one of our locations.
Wow.
Um, comes back to building the sponsors, building the deck, building the media. We're just back. We're back. We're
Yeah.
back. Say we're back, but we're back. We're back and we're excited. And then our team comes together on calls and just says, where can we find the next pieces? Where can we, but putting together an international tours, I think that is the next step from, wrapping up Times Square. So,
Fabulous.
being able to say, hey, and how many, and not just that, but how many kids can we help around the world then? When we have these thousands of boards now being shipped around the world to different destinations,
Yeah.
that they all have the opportunity to share their personal life stories on before the boards get broken. That's what this world is looking for these days. It's unification.
Yes.
It's global unification, and I think that's the biggest mission of my team. Is we're in it now. It's not about world records. It's not about it's about we have a bigger vision, which is where we want companies to go to. I would have if somebody started out with me on day one and said, "Hey, are you going to be about global unity?" I'm like, "What are you? I just want to break some
I'm
boards."
breaking
But
boards, but that's
yeah,
what I'm doing.
but now we're on to global unity. Now we're on bringing kids together, bringing stories together, bringing artwork together. It's just become such a powerful catalyst.
I can remember being in a mall back in Minnesota at an event I was running, but they also have the karate team there as
Yeah.
well. And they did the board thing. And even if a mother was walking their kids to the mall, they were not interested, the kid would stop. The kid would just turn around. Mom's like, come on, Johnny. But Johnny's like, right there. It's amazing how mesmerized and they're sponges watching everything you do. What's the coolest kid story you can tell us that you've seen or felt or encountered?
There are so many. There are
Oh
so
man.
many, but I have to share this one because so a little while ago we talked about the power of surrendering,
Yeah.
and I was out. I had a talk to give in Half Moon Bay out in California, and that was the next day when I went to San Francisco. And this I share this from the I share this from the stage to get my story across. But I was there speaking, and I said, performance is the opportunity to achieve, mastery is the ability to surrender. And I had somebody push back. I had somebody push back and say, "But that means to give up." And I didn't know how to explain it yet. I was still stuck on it.
Mhm.
But I was like, it's not giving up. It's not giving up. It's giving in, but not giving up. And so the next day I went to the children's hospital and I was meeting with the kids. And again, it's just a powerful story. I'll never forget it. It was a blonde haired, blue eyed boy. He was probably about 11 or 12. He had cancer. And he and I were sitting there. We're talking to each other. So we're having this conversation with each other. It was getting pretty deep and pretty powerful. And as the two of us were sharing the story, I looked over his shoulder and his dad was looking at me. And I said, that's the surrender I want to share with people. This is a father sitting behind his son who has cancer and who is it's surrender is when you're all in, but you're not in control.
Yes.
That's surrender. And that's when I leave the stage. I want people stepping up, not saying I'm going to achieve, but saying I'm going to surrender because I can cultivate more in my life by surrendering than I can by just accomplishing. And I've just come to learn and live that. But that's my child story. I mean, it was. I mean, I could. We could have another hour, and I could tell
Yeah.
you about the amount
Oh,
of
I'm
children.
sure.
But it was the impact that this child had on my life and his father that cultivated the answer of surrender is the life we should be living because it's not because of what we're going to miss out, but because of what we're going to be able to gain by being all in, but not being in control. Who's brave enough to do that?
Leaf, that's gold. That's absolutely gold. Everyone watching tonight, you've got to make sure you get that. Here's Leaf's website. What's at the website? What are they going to find when they go there, man?
Oh, lots. Probably a bit of what we shared today. You can get in touch with me, as well as you'll see a lot of the cool videos that I've done over the years between today's show and Letterman and all that good stuff. But it gives a little bit of insight too as to who I am, what I try to teach, and again, I hope by the time anybody's listening to what I have to share, they look at life maybe even just a little bit differently, and just say the world is much grander than I could have ever realized if I have the courage to do that. So,
Leif Becker, thanks for being on. This has been absolutely marvelous. Congratulations on your success. And
Rich.
we're going to wait for the world tour. And by the way, Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
You come here, we'll hang out. We'll break some
All
boards.
right. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate you allowing me the time to be together and share and come together and a lot of great things that we had the opportunity to speak about. So thank you so much.
Thank you much, Leif. Boy, what a great conversation. And I really want to go back to that whole mindset thing, the work life balance. It is the holiday season. We are going 105 miles per hour every day, all the time. Slow down, enjoy the family, have a little time to yourself. Work will wait, the stuff will get done. But I think that work life balance is so important. And then you go back to breaking boards and having a lot of fun and hitting the mark. Hey, that's going to do it for tonight. I'm the Trigger Rich Bontrager. We'll be back here again next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We go live once again with another great conversation. Make sure on YouTube, join the chat, ask questions, join the conversation, and watch for more episodes on Rock the Stage Show. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you back here again, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday nights for Rock the Stage Show.